Hi everyone, I'm Joanne Peca. I'm the Chief Information Officer at Penn State Altoona. For those of you who don't know, Penn State Altoona is about 40 minutes down the road, so as John mentioned, we do have some really interesting spaces, and I will extend an invitation to everyone if you're interested in a tour or if you have any questions for me. We're very open to visitors. We love it. Just a quick overview of Penn State Altoona. We have about 4,200 students. We're oscillating somewhere between 4,200 and 4,300. We have about 650 faculty and staff. I came on board February 2010, so John has about a year and a half on me in terms of tenure at Penn State Altoona. And at Penn State. John's over at Penn State Altoona. But, you know, one of the things that he and I have talked about a lot, and actually you're going to see a lot of recurring themes between our two presentations, is that we don't like to reinvent the wheel. And at Penn State, you don't have to. One of the things I tend to say a lot is that when I came to Penn State, I started to feel like a kid in a candy store because in my past positions, I'd been sort of at mid-sized schools, basically about the same size as the Altoona campus, but we operated independently. So a lot of the things that we had to sort of do on our own at these other schools, basically there was, as John mentioned, you know, the University Park cloud that we could start going out and using some resources. So basically what we're going to run through here, and I'm going to try to go kind of quickly so we have enough time for some questions and discussion, but I basically have 5 rules of thumb that I've tried to use over the past year and a half that have helped us basically roll out some new initiatives without getting additional staff, additional buildings. I know for everybody's space is at a premium. So basically, the theme is how do we do more with what we have? So the first thing that I encourage everyone to do is talk to your customers. When I came on board, I basically spent the first probably 6 months of my life going out, speaking with faculty departments, staff departments, meeting both on our campus at Altoona and also at UP. John was actually kind enough when I first started. One of our first meetings, he had handed me an Excel spreadsheet with a list of about 20 or 25 people. He said, go meet these people, build your network. And it's huge. You have to do that. I strongly encourage you. As we see in this room today, there are a lot of communities. People are willing to share ideas and work with one another. By all means, go out and do that. But more importantly, you know, talk to your customers first, because you don't want to start going down a path that turns out nobody wants. You know, we can put. I have a great example of this. Before I came on board, there had been a decision to put smart boards into one of our general purpose classrooms. To this day, and actually I have our instructional technology coordinator here. To this day, those things are not used because they were just thrown in there as, hey, it's technology. Technology that nobody needed in that particular classroom. So it was really wasted money, wasted resources. So what you need to do is talk to people, find out what they need. The other thing that you can do, once you've done that, is identify and use what you have. And there's 2 aspects to this. The first is look at your staff. At Penn State Altoona, again, a school size 4,200 students, we probably should have had 5 disparate IT groups. And we did. So it was a total of maybe 22 people, including full-time and part-time staff. But one of the first things I did was start to sort of lay the groundwork for, hey guys, this doesn't make sense. You know, we're all operating, we're essentially doing the same things, but we need to be working cohesively. And so I kind of actually started working first with the individual groups, and actually in some cases they're one-person departments. But I started talking to them and saying, we really need to be a cohesive IT unit. After sort of getting buy-in from the right people, and making sure that those affected bought into the idea too. I didn't want to just like run to the chancellor and say, hey, let's do this, and we don't care who it affects and how they think, what they think about it, but we got buy-in from the right people. And what we've done is we've taken, basically we had something called a computer center, which was one IT group. We had telecommunications, we had instructional technology, we had an independent individual working for our communications department, and we had an individual working in engineering. We've actually brought in everybody, but engineering is a solid report to the CIO now. Engineering has a dotted line. We're still working through that one, but the idea is we all have a connection now. The gentleman who works in engineering has all the resources of an IT staff member. He's officially an IT staff member. so we can give them access to things like CLM, administrative rights, and all of those things that was very difficult when it was, again, 5 different units. So start thinking about, you know, if you have, and you don't have to be the CIO to do this. You can start kind of talking amongst yourselves and maybe feed some of those ideas up to, you know, again, the chance of the powers that be to help sort of start making a more cohesive IT unit. The other thing that I really find important is find the people who are willing to learn. You don't need to hire somebody new to get a new skill set. On my staff, I sat down, you know, when I first started, and I started talking to everybody individually and saying, what do you do here? What do you want to do? And, you know, in some cases, we can make what you want to do, what you do here. There are things that can align. Great example is, we actually had a faculty member come to us and say, I really need some Linux support. And I looked across my staff and I said, no, we don't have anybody who does Linux support. So then the next staff meeting I had, I said, who wants to learn about Linux? And it actually took a couple of iterations of, really guys, who wants to learn about Linux? But finally, we got them, I'll do it. But you know, as I talked to him about it more, he said, yeah, I'm willing to take this on. And it's actually, this is very new, it was just a couple of weeks ago that he went to Linux training that was offered, it was an outside vendor, but it was offered through ITS. And now we have somebody who at least has some groundwork so that we can start, you know, supporting Linux as requested by the faculty. So identifying those people who are willing to take on something new or learn something new is huge in using what you have. And then also think about the inanimate objects. So what spaces do you have that are dead or that are underutilized that you could rework so that you have a new resource? And I actually have a few pictures of some spaces that where we did this. This picture is our student center. This counter was actually used by student affairs. It just basically had some brochures and documents, and I don't even know if those things were really used. It was just a counter, and they said, okay, we can put this stuff on here. So we went to student affairs and we said, hey, we have this idea, we're going to create a mini lab. There's a printer, 3 workstations. Can we have that space? Do you really need it for those brochures? And they said, no, we'll put a rack on the wall and put those brochures there, and you can have the space. So there you go. Not a lot of construction. Actually, the counter was already there. The only thing we're going to do is actually move the printer. We're going to have our facilities folks just build a little printer cart because we wanted to make it actually easier for some people to access the printouts. Some shorter people, it's a little high for those height challenged folks. So a few tweaks we're going to make, but we actually did this last May. Very few resources needed. Here's another space. This is actually a close-up, but this is actually a MediaScape unit from Steelcase. It's a collaboration workstation. And actually, in our case, our students are using it, maybe because this isn't a lab space, but they are using it for collaboration. Now, this is staged. I will admit, these are a few of our student workers, but we actually installed these, it must have been late April. It was right before finals week. And for about a week, they sat there. Nobody really knew what to do. So we decided to put out an email to our student mailing list to say, hey, this resource is here. We created a little one-page sheet, literally I think it's 6 steps on here's how you get the thing up and running. If you haven't seen these units, they're pretty neat. They have these little things called pucks. You attach your laptop output to it, and basically you can share your work projecting up to those 2 screens. You can have multiple people connected. You can sort of switch them around. All it took was that email, and what we did here was, this is actually the back of our lab. We had a couple just plain vanilla tables there. What we did was move those to the front where we actually had nothing. And these, just so you know too, I'm a bargain hunter. I refuse to pay full price for anything. And I work with our Steelcase dealer. We got 2 for 1. So this is actually, there's a mirror of this unit. They're back to back. And we got them 2 for 1. Awesome. That's probably the best coupon shopping I've done in a while. But this is the kind of thing where the students come, they're using it, they love it. And as John said, sometimes I just see students sitting there at the tables, they're not even using the technology, which is fine. Other times, like I said, we rolled these out right before finals week. We saw students collaborating on PowerPoint presentations and all of those sort of things where normally you'd see them all sort of clustered around one person's laptop. So really exciting stuff there. This is one of our downtown spaces, and as you can see in that corner, this is sort of the long view. This is actually our cafe in our downtown campus, in our Aaron building, and that little corner in the back where those machines are is completely dead. There was nothing there at all. So once again, we just went to the folks who are actually sort of using that space in that area, and we said, do you care if we kind of said, you know, put an L-shaped desk and a few machines and a printer, and now we have a mini lab. And everybody, yeah, sure, you know, we're not doing anything with the space. And there you go. And actually, what you'll see there too is they turn some of the soft seating towards that corner. So now it's like a little lounge/lab that they can use between classes. And I should mention too, this is our only sort of open space. We have a lot of classrooms with computers downtown, but this would be these 4 machines. They are literally our only open spaces currently, and we're actually working right now to create more of those. And this is just sort of a close-up view, and you can't see it with the projector, but you'll see people are using it in different ways. One person's using Facebook. These two actually I think are working, but the idea here is, as John said, students do need a place to sort of kick back, relax between classes, or maybe they need to get some work done between classes too. I talked a little bit about reorganizing. So again, I'll repeat myself, but see where you can identify where you're sort of not working as efficiently as you can. And again, one of my favorite examples is when I started, IT used to be a completely flat organization, and actually it all reported up to business services. We didn't even have an IT manager. I was sort of the first one. So what we had though is we had 6 people handling labs, and each person had a different lab. They met, and even just down to the login, it was completely different from one space to the next. And that was one of the first things faculty said. I walk into a classroom and I don't know from one place to the next how to log in. In some places I need to connect to wireless, in some places I don't. It was really a confusing thing for our faculty. So, well, one of the things we've done is we've started using cooperative lab management, and we're actually not to, John, I need to talk to you because you need to get on the Mac side too, so maybe you can hook us up. But we're actually using it on our Windows side of the house now. So first of all, that took care of the whole problem with it's different from one space to the next. But then also, we've gone from having 6 people having labs down to, we're down to about 2.5 FTE, and we're actually still trending towards, we're shooting for just 2 people to be fully responsible for labs. You may have heard something about this with John. And this may actually be a quote from John, because it's one of those things where, you know, what you have to look at what you're doing. You're not, at least I'm not going to get any new staff in the near future. Not that I necessarily think we need to grow. I think we need to figure out what we're doing that we shouldn't be doing. So my first example is, if you happen to have somebody who comes in with a 9-year-old laptop, just stop. Nobody should be spending time on a 9-year-old laptop. I would rather, out of my own budget, buy somebody a new laptop than work on a 9-year-old laptop. And I have taken that tack at our campus now. It's, you know, if you just give that to me, I will give you something brand new. And it's kind of like I'm luring them or offering up a trade, but it's really worked, because for a lot of people, you know, they've had that machine for 9 years, they know how it works, so they needed some sort of incentive to give that resource up. But we did literally have a 9-year-old laptop walk in just a few months after I started. And this can't continue to be propped up. It's almost the opposite of what I'm saying here, but one of the things that I did implement was a help desk. We had no help desk when I first started. I know it sounds groundbreaking, right? Oh, a help desk, right? We actually had people call in, and they would talk to an administrative assistant who would take a message and put it in a work order system, and it would be assigned to Tier 2 immediately. There was no Tier 1 remediation. So, as it turned out, though, our administrative assistant was really good with software, and she was very trainable on some of the other sort of Tier 1 questions that would come through. So we started training her on that, and you're saying, well, what do you stop? You're stopping what? We're stopping people wandering our hallway. We would literally have faculty come in saying, I need somebody to help me, and they would have no particular place to go because we were just a hallway with a bunch of offices, and we didn't have a place for people to go, a help desk. So people are starting to come in to a help desk. They understand now we have actually 2 staff members. We've rebalanced, moved the people around, reclassified some folks, and now we have a help desk, and we're stopping the idea of just wander the IT hallway and grab the first person we can. So, progress. And then finally, again, I just want to reiterate, building your network is a huge thing. When I came on board here, there are so many resources that we can be using. Media Commons community is a great example. Nick Smirker and I have just started working together in the past few months, but there are a lot of things that we're able to do because, and we're planning to do because we're working together with the Media Commons resources and Penn State Altoona's resources. Also on our campus ourselves, I've built a relationship with our library director, who has been kind enough to start taking on the responsibility, or actually we're in the process of having them take on the responsibility of checking in and out some of our portable devices that normally that would have been our instructional technology group's responsibility. And this helps on two fronts. One, it gets us out of the business of doing that. We don't have to recreate a library system and basically try to keep track of what's in, what's out. And also, our library is open longer. It's, we actually have hours until 2 a.m. some nights. So students could literally come in at 1 in the morning and say, oh, I need a video camera. And they can get it. They're not told to come back at 9 a.m. So they have a whole night of filming then. So, building your network, again, both across campuses, within your own campus, is hugely important. And it will help you get out of the business of recreating the wheel and maybe doing some work that you don't necessarily need to be doing yourself. So that's it. 5 easy steps to start doing more with what you have. And I guess I'll open it up to questions for either John or myself at this point.
Just a couple minutes, if you guys have anything.
Probably more of an ignorant question, but what's the downtown Altoona?
Actually, Altoona has 2 campuses. Basically, the Ivy Side campus is our traditional wooded, leafy, beautiful campus. And then what happened in the past, I would say 7 years or so, downtown Altoona is about 10 minutes away from the Ivy Side campus. And it was sort of going the way of the dodo. It was a lot of buildings that were not being used. A lot of them had old, they're beautiful buildings, but they had just fallen into disrepair. And so what Penn State Altoona has been doing is actually leasing some of the buildings and renovating them, turning them into classroom spaces. So we actually now have 5 buildings in downtown Altoona. So we actually have a little mini multi-campus system going on down there. But it's wonderful for the town. Again, we're revitalizing our downtown area. And it's really nice too because we're really doing some interesting things with our spaces. And as has been mentioned, our communications program, our nursing program, and actually now our entrepreneurship program has a new building as of August. And we're doing really top-notch technology work in all of those spaces.
They renamed the one street with Blue and White.
Yes, yeah. Our 12th Avenue is now Blue and White Way.
To go along with what both of you said this morning, and I'm Drew McGee from Altoona, talking about leveraging your vendors. Obviously, University Park does have some design services, but sometimes they're very, very busy and they can't accommodate you in a timely manner. What we have done is leverage for AV design work. One of our vendors has donated a lot of time to do our design work for us. They also bid on the project, and we do hire them from time to time. We hired them to design our 3rd floor communication suite and our 4th floor nursing suite because of the complexity of those 2 floors. But that's another thing you can do is go to your vendors and have them do your design work for you.
I was interested about the library because the library system, I think, reports. They don't report to the campuses; they report to me. And this 2 a.m. I think it's wonderful because that's when students do most of the work is like from 10 o'clock to 4 o'clock. So I was just interested how did all that work to convince the library system of our library to move to a 2 a.m. closing period.
I can't speak to exactly how it worked out between, say, our library director and the library system, sort of that cloud. But I can tell you that, and maybe this was the traction it needed, it came from our students. Our student government actually came to the library and said, we really need this. And actually, it's I think it's a certain section of the library that's open, so it's not a full run of the library, but they still have a number of the resources that they need. I mean, most students these days are using the online resources anyway, and they just need maybe some support from a librarian. So I think that's probably the key difference.
Student-driven.
Yeah.